Welcome to what I call Reading Buddy 301, a little deeper dive into helping children be better readers, ultimately love reading more because reading is fun. We're super grateful that you're spending extra time with us to learn some new skills, maybe some tips and tricks to continue to grow each and every child to our goal of reading on grade level. You're about to meet somebody who's very important to Project Transformation. Robin Myers is one of the people who brought Project Transformation to our area. She has been instrumental in this organization in challenging us to get better at children's literacy. She's an expert, and she's agreed to share some of the skills she has in this video in order for all of us to be able to serve each and every child better. So thank you for taking time to learn more about children's literacy and about ways in which during our Reading Buddy time, you can have skills to be able to help the struggling readers, but also every reader to be able to be better at children's literacy. Thank you. Why do you think it matters that we work on reading in the summer?
So we know that when children don't read over the summer, that they can lose 2 to 3 months worth of reading instruction. So instead of starting school where they left off, they are now 2 to 3 months behind, which means the teacher, instead of start new information and new learning, catch up.
Yeah.
Now we also know that there's a large number of our students who do not have books in their home, may not have transportation to the library. So access to books is a problem. We also have a lot of kids that unfortunately think reading is a school thing, not a fun thing.
Yeah.
So when we can teach them that reading is fun and get them to want to read instead of wanting to pick up the remote control for a video game, that's a win. So all of those things are things that we try to do in the summer: access to books, time to read, making it fun.
A grown-up to help.
A grown-up to help. A grown-up to help accomplish these things. A grown-up who's fun to hang out with. Then all of a sudden we're reading during the summer and we come back at the beginning of school ready to learn.
So sometimes we have children who say to their reading buddies, I can't read.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell a reading buddy is a great response, particularly an intervention to the statement, I can't read?
The first thing I would say is what anybody on PT would say is, I can't read yet.
Love the word yet.
We say I cannot read yet, because that has all the potential and all the optimism in it for our children. And so once we start with that idea, the next thing we say, and I would say our number one priority with our children in the summer, is to convey to them, to convince them that reading is fun.
Right.
If we can convince them that reading is fun, usually everything else falls into place.
That's right. For you and I, that's true,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Why do we read all the time,
Because-
Robin?
Exactly.
Because reading is fun.
Because reading is fun, and
Right.
I still learn new vocabulary in reading.
right.
So there's
That's
no
right.
shame in not knowing all the words in a book. Because
And a long time ago, you taught me you can't have words out without words in.
one of the things, and Jim Trelease in his Read Aloud Handbook, which is a fabulous resource, says words have to come in your eyes and ears before they will ever come out your mouth or your pencil. So we're pouring words into our children when we're speaking with them, when we're reading with them, the words are all coming in, and then they get to come out through their mouth and through their pencil. Sometimes we find that it is as simple as having to go back to the beginning, knowing that our kids need to make sure that they can identify letters, that they can identify which capital letter goes with which lowercase letter,
Right.
know some of the sounds that the letters make, maybe know that the word cat starts with a k sound, which is a C. Those kind of very simple things. Our goal is always to have our children reading a book every single time they work with a reading buddy in some form or fashion. But the truth is that you can only read the cat sat on the mat so many times before we go the opposite direction of reading is fun.
Right.
So we want to do a little bit of that, but then we're going to dive into the literacy crates that we've created that have some games that will make it fun to learn some of these skills that maybe they're lacking at this time to be good readers.
It also is just a really great way to get to know your kiddo, right?
Yes.
It's not just about the book. There are things that you learn about your kiddo, about what they like and what they don't like, which then helps you later to be able to help them find a book,
Absolutely.
which is enticing, right? So let's talk a little bit about what's in a literacy crate?
I'm going to start with my very favorite item, which is the plain old whiteboard. We can use these in so many different ways. The kids love them. The learning is excellent. And really, we talk about using this with the emerging readers, but truthfully, they can be used with any level reader as we're trying to acquire vocabulary, good for sounding out words. One of the main things that I do on this for our emerging readers are word families. We have sheets in the literacy crate with examples of all the different kinds of games and
Are
activities
those
you can
in a
do.
specific
Yeah, they're
color?
on bright yellow paper,
Oh, okay, awesome.
like this.
Ah, okay.
And that gives you, and one of the things that we've done is we have written down 37 different letter groupings that are very commonly used to make words and that you can make word families out of. So they're all listed there, but I'll give you an example. One of the simplest things that we do, let's say that you, I will do this way and then show it to you. You have the word at, and we talk about what that sounds like and how we sound that. Then I would say, what if we put the k sound in front? And I would put the letter that makes that sound, and we would sound that out and decide that that is cat. I would say, okay, what if we take away this C and I put a B, like this, a really well-drawn B. And we figure out that that is bat. We keep doing this over and over and over, and when your child feels comfortable with it, you let them take the lead. What letter would they like? Let them erase, let them write it. When we do this, they're gonna make up nonsense words.
Yeah.
And that's fine. When they put a Z in front of
They
this.
and Dr. Seuss both.
Exactly, Dr. Seuss is very famous for this,
Right.
so it's fine.
Right.
When they put a Z in front and they come up with Zat, then everybody laughs.
Right.
That's a silly word.
Right.
Wasn't that funny, but you still did it correctly.
Right.
Let's try another sound.
Perfect.
We keep doing this. Now this is very simple for our young readers, but don't forget that you can do this for our higher level readers as well, when things just get a little bit more complex. So
English is hard.
English is hard. And when you say just sound it out, that doesn't always work.
No.
So we can put a little sound and make light. We can make might. We can make night. We can even make it a little more challenging and add what we call a blend, which is two letters that make one side. We might add the FL, and we've made flight. These are more challenging words.
Right.
So we can continue to use whiteboards as our readers progress in their
Right.
ability. That's why this is one of my favorite things to do. Another favorite thing to do is to capture vocabulary that might be new to them. Whether that, when our children are reading the books and they come to a word that they stumble on or they completely miss, I tend to just write it down. And when we're done, I say, here's your new vocabulary that we learned in this book. Not the words you missed,
Right.
not the words you got wrong, but new to us vocabulary.
Right.
Remember, when our kids see it, hear it, speak it, and write it, it sticks better. So that's where this comes in. I've written them down. I'm going to read them out loud. They're going to hear them and see them. I let them copy them because they will do anything that involves writing on the whiteboard.
Right.
So I'm going to let them copy them down. They're going to write them. Now they've written them. Then we're going to talk about them. We might use them in silly sentences. I might say pick two and I erase it and see if they can write them from memory. Remember, our kids learn better in context and not in isolation.
Right.
So if I just were to drill them on these words in isolation,
Yeah.
first of all, that is not fun. So that defeats goal number one. Reading is fun. That is not
Right.
fun. But number two, it just doesn't stick unless there's context. So when we're using all of our senses and we're using them in sentences, we can make up stories. Sometimes we'll make up stories where I say the first sentence, it has one word, and they make up the next sentence with another word. Just silly playing with these words. Let them write sentences on the board. Any of these things will help them to really own that word. But they've been having a good time. Who knew that they were learning, right?
We have this that has word families.
Yes.
There's several envelopes that are
Yes.
in a literacy crate. I would also want to say, right, reading buddies can always come early.
Yes.
If you know, gosh, I've been and I'm gonna read. I hope I'm gonna read with the same little fella if they're there. And I've already discovered, right, they're struggling a little bit. So just kind of give us an overview of other tools that are in there.
What we've done here, and we have these manila envelopes that have all of the components you need to play a game and have very clear instructions. Most of these games in the manila envelopes are really for our youngest emerging readers. These are not ones that you would want to do with, maybe your kids are reading on the third grade level, but they're a fourth grade in class wise. This is for our emerging readers. And these are games where we're doing rhyming where we're playing bingo with little with finding letters. We've got dominoes where they'll have a letter on one end and you connect it to the picture of the word that starts with that same letter sound. Again, we're incorporating all of these skills in very simple games, but they're fun.
Would you say, so if you think about a reading buddy has a 30-minute window, would you say maybe we want the book to be open maybe at least 10 of those minutes?
If especially with our younger readers, I always have the goal of getting a book in their hand and letting them read out loud for some portion.
Well, I use it oftentimes, right, as an incentive.
Yes.
You know what? Let's read this book, and then I have a game I want to
Yes.
play. And then they're motivated externally to be able
Exactly.
to do it. Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
the rule is reading is fun, so we're having fun. And you will be able to tell when they're rocking along and reading well, and then
Right.
there's a sigh, and then they turn the
Right.
page, and then they, and that's when you swoop in and say,
Right.
what if
Right.
we took turns reading a page. You read a page, I read a page. You read a page, I read a page. And then if that doesn't work, would you like for me to finish the book for you?
Right.
Remember that our kids can hear and listen to a story at a higher reading level and completely understand it than they can read on their own.
And we always want, like, that's why we have these amazing libraries.
Yes.
If you've played a game and you figured out that your child loves whales.
Yes.
Well, whale, oh my gosh, what a word. But anyway, whale is a
Yes.
really hard word, but you might can pull the book, have them follow along, and
Yes.
that totally counts.
It totally counts when you read aloud to them. So they are understanding it, and all of the things that we would do to check engagement in a book that they've read,
Right.
we can do all of those same things in a read aloud. So if you're reading aloud, you turn the book so that they can see the pictures, but you also are asking them to follow along with the text. So they're reading in their heads
Yeah.
and they're listening to you read. You want to, at the end of it, say, I know what happened. I
Yeah.
understood this book. So comprehension is a really important part of that. So the questions I would ask for engagement, I would say things like, maybe in the middle of the story, what do you think they're going to do?
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen next? And get them engaged. And at the end, I would say, what stood out from you? What stood out from this book?
Yeah.
What did you think about how it
Right.
ended? Did you think it was going to end differently? Were you surprised at this ending? If you wrote this book,
Right.
would you have ended it differently? If you were in this book,
Right.
would you have made a different
Right.
decision? All of these kind of engagement questions is telling you the responses. The child is digging deeper into the story about how they felt about it, what they thought about it, what they got out of it.
Right.
The other thing you can do, and we can do this very simply with our younger readers, but also with our higher level readers, is letting that expression come out. With our younger ones, you might say, would you like to draw a picture about the story we just read?
Right.
For our older kids, they can still do art, or they can write something out, or they can, one of the things that's fun with the older readers is like to let them be the book expert. And they can give a book review
Yeah.
and maybe tell 2 or 3 sentences about the book to one of the younger kids in the program and say, I loved this book because
Right.
these 3 things, I think you would really love this. Maybe we can get this book read to you.
Yeah.
So letting them become kind of the expert on the book is a really great way to build confidence, to make sure that that comprehension is there, and again, to have fun. We're all about reading being fun.
Right.
So those are some of the key things. So one of the things that we have in the literacy crate, we have yellow word cards, and we have them for every for pre-K, kinder, all the way through 3rd.
Yeah.
That's where they stop. After 3rd, we have a nice thick deck of nouns that are higher level words. We can just work on
So
nouns.
this works not just for a 1st or 2nd grader.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah, and we
Fair.
can play with that. And again,
Yeah.
since we know that we learn
There's a
better,
hard one.
there's boat. Yeah, that OA, that OA, I'm telling you. So the definition for these words, they're kind of based on 2 things: high frequency.
Uh-huh.
So our kids are going to see these words in their reading very regularly, and if they stumble over this same word every single time, their fluency is going to suffer, and if their
Right.
fluency suffers, their understanding of what they're reading suffers.
Yes.
So these, we just call them sight words sometimes, just so we can just
Yeah.
know them by sight,
Yeah.
and we're going to see them all the time, so let's learn them. The other thing they are is irregular.
Yeah.
And irregular words don't follow the rules. And there's already a lot of rules in English. And so the words that don't follow the rules can be frustrating because they may have skills to sound words out.
And then it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And that's frustrating.
Yeah.
So we just say, you know what, this one doesn't follow the rules. We just learn it every time we see it. we know what it looks like, and we just learn it.
You want reading buddies to do what they're comfortable with.
Yes.
And some reading buddies, probably the ones that are watching this, have been doing this for a while. And every child can benefit from these, but hopefully the reading buddies that have a little bit more experience end up with the kiddo who just needs a little bit more attention. And that's really what the Literacy Crate has been designed for. So between the Literacy Crate, the Reading Buddy folder, and kind of looking back to see what was just right. Maybe we move a little bit to this one's a little bit more difficult. The other thing I would say is, right, we have the reading in progress portion at every site. And so if you have a book that you know they love, you can put their name on the bookmark, put it in, and that can be your read aloud with them.
And that can be your read aloud. And remember, if they do a little bit of reading, and then your prize at the end of that is that you're reading them this higher level book that is on topic with something that is interesting to them.
So important.
This whole package of reading instruction that's fun. It's not just sitting down and saying for 30 minutes, you must read this book, and that's it. And this is what we do. And the other thing too is, remember, we talked earlier, like sometimes they might not want to read because they're having a bad day, and they're little people and they get to have bad days, and we get to accommodate that. If this happens over and over and over, let's engage some of your PT staff to see how we can give you some other hints of getting over that. But if it's just a bad day, it's a bad day. You can make it work. Also, we have the benefit, not being a classroom teacher, of not managing so many kids at once. I've got one student. If this student needs to stand up while he reads to me, great, he stands up. If we need to take a break and walk around the room, I've done that before when we've been working on a letter sound, and we'll just look around the room and identify all the words that start with that letter. Let them take a lap with you in the room and go sit back down. Some kids are, kinetic learners. Some kids need to move to learn. And so we have the ability to engage our kids with that since we're just one-on-one. So
I just want to say a word of thanks, that volunteers are what drive this organization. You're such a great example of that you are a reading buddy. And the people who come to us, your payment is changing a kid's life. Thank you again for spending time with us. If you still have questions, or you've run into something you don't know how to tackle, we want you to know that the Project Transformation staff is always available to talk through any issues. Also, we want you to know that the Reading Volunteer Coordinator has that job because they have special training for reading buddies and for children's literacy. But mostly we want to tell you thank you, and we're here to support you as a reading buddy in any way we can.